This is Motovation. I'm Laurie Joy Kingwell.
And I'm Krissy Vann. We're two dreamers on two wheels inspired by our community.
And celebrating the voices we're just lucky enough to discover along the ride. So if not already, like, subscribe, follow along, do what you gotta do to not miss an episode. We're talking today mountain and valley views. You have those moments in life where you're at the tip top of the peak of the mountains and all just feels well, or incredible, or just the best it could possibly feel. And then sometimes, or most of the time, something comes idly by and takes you down to a valley. And our good friend Rene Botha, who's joined us before, she had that exact experience recently, and she's in it right now. Tip top of the peak of the mountain, riding through the jungles of Belize with her 10 good friends, having the time of her life, filling up the bucket of her soul. And very unexpectedly, an injury took place. An injury that highly affects her livelihood, her bread and butter, her career as a tattoo artist. And so going from the tip top peak of a mountain to quite a bit of a valley, we're talking about how she is handling that, but also how being at the top of that mountain, at the peak with those views, also helps in those moments when you are in the valleys and the views suddenly change, and how you have a choice of how you're going to see that new viewpoint. So again, we are welcoming Rene Botha, and we are talking about the views from the tip-top peak of the mountains and the lower valleys. This is your motivation. So, like I said, we are here again with Rene Botha. Do I say your name right? I never have to say your name.
Right. Yeah, because you
call your last name. I say your first name often.
Yes.
Last name rarely, if ever.
Yeah. I mean, Botha is the Canadian way. We'll go with that. Yeah.
What is the proper way?
Well, in South Africa, it's pronounced Botha.
Oh, let's do that.
Yeah, it's Afrikaans. So
that's badass.
It's a little bit more aggressive sounding.
Oh, I'm in. Oh, yeah. You had me with a okay, say it again. Let's hear it again.
Botha.
Botha. No. Mm-hmm. The look on your face was very clear. That was not a home run.
Let me see if I can. So it's Botha.
Botha. No, you know what's the problem is that I don't have an ear for language, even my own. And anyone that's listening is like, first, Laurie, worry about pronouncing all the words that you say a little better, and then hop on to an Afrikaans.
No. I mean, to be fair, the reason I have settled on just Botha is because it has a vowel in it that we don't use in the English language. And so it's just hard for people to hear, to pronounce it. And then, yeah. So
I have an idea then so that we can properly nail it and properly say your name.
Yeah.
I'll do that quick. And then you just real aggressive say your name. We're going to laugh, I bet. But let's see how this goes. You ready?
Okay.
All right. We're here with my gal, Rene.
What up?
Yeah. Yeah. Woo!
Nailed it.
And you were actually one of our first guests way back. I say way back, but like we're talking like 2 years ago now. Just
I think so. Yeah.
Crazy to think because it was the spring and we were talking about leveling up and how to take, like your career to the next level. And so you're back. And actually today's a little bit different because our other gal, Krissy, co-host, is not here. This is actually the first time I've done this without Krissy.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not going to be as good. Let's be real honest and real clear about that. But keep listening. All you listeners. Rene will help me do this justice. But she is at this fitness conference for work living her best life. So she will be back with us soon enough. And why? Well, there's two reasons. Rene was always going to join us
And now that I'm saying this, I hope this didn't have an effect on, really opening up your schedule for availability, because two things happened. Well, actually, a lot of things happened that we'll tell many stories with down the road, Rene and I. But we were in Brazil, a week and a half ago?
Belize, I believe.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. What? That's correct. We were not in Brazil. No.
But
we were
on the list, perhaps. Maybe that is,
be.
Yeah, maybe you're channeling our next adventure.
Well, speaking of channeling, when we were in Belize, we had been riding for a couple of days and had these remarkable experiences. And we were on this like incredible little farm for the evening and night. And we were watching this insane sunset. And you had looked to a few of us and said, like, today everything's been amazing. But today was that moment where like, there's this incredible thing that happens when your helmet's on and the place that you go within it. And what is that? And we were saying like, yes, hold that thought. Let's talk about it on the podcast. And then I said, yeah, when we get back, Krissy's going to be away. And so we can do this and I'll interview you. Wonderful. Now, I hope we didn't channel something and open your schedule up because
my schedule's wide open.
Another few days later, when we weren't on the bikes or you weren't on the bike that day, something happened that like really opened up your schedule so that you were here today, very, very fluid in the times that you could come. What happened?
Well, I Tarzan swinged into freedom.
Tarzan swung into freedom. It opened things up. And how did that open things up for you?
Well, it turns out I cracked. Well, the doctor said it is a complicated break, but I crushed a bone in my hand trying to imitate the very graceful swing that Kim did into the water from a dock. So
you crushed the finger, but I saw the video. You did not necessarily crush the landing.
The video is very how should I put it? It feels like the video betrayed me in a way.
Yeah, it did. It sure did.
Because I was pausing it in the moment that the actual break occurred, and it really just looks like I just like fall right into the water. It's just like
it does, doesn't it?
So anticlimactic. Yeah. And I told my mom, I'm like, I got to send you this video. And she's like, no, please don't send me this. That is way too graphic for me. I'll faint. I'm like, yeah. And so anyway, she didn't want to hear anything about it. So I didn't send her the video, but yeah.
I feel like we'll have to post the video at some point. It does though. It looks as though it just feathers the rope before you come very quickly down. And
yeah, like no swinging happened. Actually, there was no swinging of the rope. There was falling directly into the water.
Right. You parallel graze the rope. You had just a passing of the rope. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's so remarkable how much damage I did. I literally can't believe it. I was at the hand specialist yesterday and they sat me down and they were like, this is a very complicated break. There are many fragments to the bone, but somehow, magically, they all decided to line up perfectly at the knuckle. So I do not need surgery.
Come on.
Yeah, which is great. So I'm only out of the game maybe for 3 more weeks.
Oh, well, congratulations on that, number one, because the last time I saw you, this was looking as though it could be a 3-month window of freedom. And when we say freedom is because you are a very successful and talented tattoo artist that needs your hand to permanently put art on people's bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And a broken hand. And it wasn't your steady finger?
It was, yeah. So it's my actual tattooing hand, but it's more of a stabilizing finger. It's my ring finger. Yeah. So it's
very much needed.
Very much needed.
Yeah, I don't want an unstable hand tattooing my ass. I gotta be real honest. So that's
my life. However, I have to say, it has made me take a pause because I very rarely do that in my career. And I am looking at my life through a different lens right now. So even though there's a little bit of free falling and paradigm shifts and checking my ego and my identity, I mean, I get that it's only been a week, but it's a lot to take in. But it's been like I'm already grateful for this break. I'll say that.
That's very, very, very cool, because as much as you say, well, it's only been a week, you had to really look at big realities. Like, you are, self-employed. You don't have necessarily a company or something that just gets to back you when you're put in this position. And so even though you had to be in a position where you couldn't necessarily get ahead of yourself, you also had to face a very real reality. And like you just said, the other thing is you can go to, a deep state of worry of like, what's that going to be? And all the things that come with it. And I'm sure that you went through parts of that, but like, you can also then have that opportunity to really kind of shift the lens. And like you said, you had been working nonstop leading up to Belize for how many months?
Well, it's been pretty steady, but the last month leading up to our trip, I worked every single day. So I had 0 days off. And I felt a little bit burnt out. And like getting to Belize was like crawling to the finish line.
Yeah, it was.
So, I mean, that trip was amazing for so many reasons, but that release and then suddenly being on a motorcycle which is one of my favorite things to do in life. It just really helped recenter my mind and my body, because I think that's a big goal in life, is to have your mind and your body kind of be in the same place, realignment, I guess. So it's honestly, I think like being able to reframe this situation, like almost every day waking up and going, okay, let's reframe this in a positive way, has helped me not lose my shit, is the graceful way of putting it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Absolutely love that. I think, I'm such a like firm believer in the power of thought, right? Because how you think is how you feel, and how you feel is how you respond to everything around you. But I also think that, vibrationally, it plays such a big role, because if we're just in the focus of all the ways in which this is going to disrupt how we are living or the experience we're having, and all the blockages and all the barriers, well, that's the vibration we're putting out. And so that's what we're also going to be bringing in, likely more barriers, more obstacles in other areas. Or if we can come from a place of, this has just opened up a different avenue of opportunity. What would that look like? Because then we become the creators rather than at the mercy of our situation. Because as much as it's disappointing, or it can still be a little scary, or all those things, they don't negate from that. But, and everyone could be like, from, like listening, they could be like, well, that's easy for you to say, Laurie. You're like going to a job and you've got this and that. But like, we just found out, really challenging news about, Dave and his position at work. And so we're in it too, in its own right. But at the same token, it's one of those things where we really made that switch as well, which you could just feel it in our home. You can feel it in the way we live. We can feel it in all those different things of like, yeah, it's disappointing. And in those moments can be scary, but that does always open other doors. Like, it's that kind of thing of like, sometimes when one closes, whether it's temporary or permanent, well, maybe a window opens or, another door, whatever it is. But it's like, it's our life isn't in a vacuum. And sometimes we can let it allow it to become that vacuum when something really, like you said, I've had to check my ego. And you're like, it's only been a week, but like you didn't allow it to become the vacuum. You were like, I'm all peeking under this curtain and in this window. I'm gonna open window. I'm gonna put my toe in that door,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we were definitely talking about your situation with Dave's job.
Yeah.
And that whole idea. And I don't know if you remember, like even in the beginning of the trip, we were talking about flow like water.
Yes,
that's
right.
Literally what I've been saying to myself every day since. Just to be very accepting of this change that maybe you weren't ready for, or you don't necessarily want, but it's inevitable, and you can either resist it and it will cause you more pain, or you can just lean into it and then, you pivot and you figure out what other opportunities have opened up. And so, I feel like I'm in that space. My days are very emotional because I'm like, oh, I have this amazing idea. And then I'm like, oh, I have this terrible idea that, financially I'm ruined. And then, like I'm all over the map.
Yeah.
But at least I feel alive. Like I'm not bored. So
yeah. Yeah. Though I love that though. It's like that I'm feeling all the things, and maybe you haven't had time to feel all the things. So of course, so much is running through you because you've been in a very focused state for a long time. And like we do that, right? We're in our routines. In many ways, we get up, we do this, we get up, do this. And then you have something like Belize that completely breaks that routine open. And then you have something also compounding, like breaking your hand when that's like your moneymaker, and that's got broke wide open. The idea that because your mind and your belief system and your values, from what anything I've known you from, for the past how many years now, is that because it's such a value system, it didn't take long to get there, and you still ebb and flow in and around all the things, right? Because it's like just that of your mind has been focused on like, this is what I do every day. I wake up, I do this. This is my livelihood. This is what so like, there's always going to be, or very likely going to be, those like panic moments that come along with it. But you think of that of like, to go from that to then be able to take yourself to such a centered space around it is pretty fucking badass.
Yeah, I think to kind of tie in that whole idea we were talking about putting your helmet on.
Yeah.
I really feel like that moment where you do put your helmet on, it is kind of like a form of meditation where you have all these thoughts and feelings come up while you're riding, but because you're on the road and you have to be engaged, you can't really attach yourself to them. So you have to let them come and go, kind of like what you do in a meditation. So things come up, you acknowledge them, you see it, and then you let them go. And I think that's one of the reasons I enjoy being on the road so much, and being in that helmet and being in that space that feels very safe, where you can scream or yell or cry or laugh and nobody knows except for you. And that helps to just center you in a way that when you get back into life, you just kind of have a little bit more clarity on who you are, what you want to do. That's kind of my whole value of being in that space. I really, really draw a lot from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had something else to say, and it totally slipped my mind.
I should have never said, mm-hmm. So you gone down some ruins at Laurie when you in the microphone. What was the moment no, I shouldn't say even moment, because I know from that exact experience, the helmet that you speak to, the meditative space, the like just absolute symphony of emotions and thoughts that go through your mind when the helmet's on. I always feel inspired afterwards, but I always too as well. I'm like, how do I hold on to this in my everyday life? That feeling of just not wanting to lose that empowered, like I feel so empowered to take on things that scare the crap out of me in regular day life, or whatever it is that is kind of stuck. All of a sudden it just becomes unstuck.
I think every time I'm in that space, I find myself there to some degree. Sometimes your ride is shorter. Sometimes it starts raining. Sometimes you hit the sunset at the right time. All of those things, I think, play a part into how you emotionally react. But I think, when you do find those moments that you just you engage with in such a beautiful way, I think it really calms me, it really centers me, and it empowers me when I'm back in real world.
But I couldn't agree more that there is something about just that of every time you get on the bike and you're going any considerable distance to some, even if it's a quick 45-minute ride, that you just step into this almost alter universe. I don't know if that's too dramatic to say, but it just doesn't feel like you're in real life anymore almost.
Yeah, I agree, because we hadn't been riding all winter and suddenly we're in this gorgeous country with people that we love. We haven't ridden for a while. All of the everything's primed.
Yeah.
And your heart's exploding.
Yes, right.
And you were so busy leading up to this that you didn't have time to check in with yourself. And I think we all suddenly found a moment together, but separate, checking in with ourselves. I have goosebumps right now thinking about it, because it was magical.
It was magical.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was magical. Just how is this real life?
Mm-hmm. And I think even for someone who doesn't practice being grateful every day, that moment just you can't not be grateful for being part of that moment. So, but we were also talking about during that week that all of these the struggles when life gets real and those lows helps to make those highs so high. And
yes,
I think that, if you can really take that in and really own that, because we work hard and we go through a lot together and separately, and that you deserve that moment. And I think it's very powerful. I was actually leading up to this trip, I'm like, okay, where there's 10 of us, it's going to be crazy. I'm a huge introvert. I'm like, oh, there might be a day where I just don't come out of my room. I don't know how I'm going to do this. But then we were there and I forgot suddenly when we were on the bike that I do get to be just me by myself, but together. And where else do you get that? I don't know. Somebody tell me.
Yes, somebody tell us. Right into the drop us a DM.
Absolutely. And then on this trip, we went off-roading, which was a new experience for me.
Me too.
And to even build on that, being even more engaged with all the different terrains. Like, how insane was that? Going through mud and rivers and gravel, and usually seeing things on my road bike that would literally make me stop in my tracks.
100%.
Suddenly now I'm like, let's do this.
Oh yeah, I'm aiming for it. I am aiming for the shit that would make me poop my pants on my bike here in Canada.
It was funny though, because when we were doing the smaller ride and we were doing all the crazy mud and the river and things just went crazy and it was so much fun.
Yeah.
And Tiff was riding behind me, and apparently we came right onto the highway and there was a leaf on the highway and I went whoop right around it. I'm like, oh, don't ride over the leaf. And I instantly switched back into road bike mode.
You know, the dirt biking it felt like I was a kid again on my brand new bike, that I got to take it in the trails by the river. And just like, it felt like I was a full blown kid. The amount of times it was just like giggling and laughing in my helmet as we were riding, because it was just like pure joy of the fun and the ridiculousness of it all.
Yeah. And I remember you talking about your face being dirty. Do you remember that?
Yes. I just actually, it's coming out tomorrow. I made just like a quick little video for Joy in the Home. And I'd gone into the bathroom and I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, and my hair was all over, and my clothes were just absolute dust and dirt. And I just felt so much happiness and joy, because at school, whenever parents would come pick up the kids and they'd be like, oh my gosh, what did you do today? You're so dirty. You're so disheveled. And I'd just be so proud, because I think, damn rights, I did my job, because they should be out exploring and getting dirty. And the last thing that they should give a shit about is what they look like when they're experiencing life. And so I caught myself, and I knew that I was properly, fully living that day, because I looked like the kids that I send home that I'm proud of. And I was like, hell yeah.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Just after that moment, I just thought, well, what would the next gear of that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can I invite more of that into my week or I don't know. I don't know the answer necessarily, but I do know that I very much like to gear up on getting dirty more often.
Yeah. And I like that that experience reminded you of your childhood, because the same thing happened with me, because actually the first time I ever rode motorcycles was when I was about 6 or 7 in South Africa. We lived in the Kalahari Desert.
Wow.
I lived in a place and time where your parents were like, be home before the sun goes down.
Yes.
And I remember a friend of mine, he had these little 50cc little motorcycles, and we would just be out on sand dunes, like obviously crashing all the time, but you didn't care. Yes, you were bruised. Yes, you were dirty, but you came home feeling full.
Yeah.
Like your heart was full. And I feel like this trip really tapped into that for me. Which is another reason why, I had such a big smile on my face in my helmet.
Yeah. And then when the big kind of hard left turn of the handbrake, which thank gosh that happened at the end of our trip.
I was amazed at how little it hurt. And I realized that I felt like I was on some weird, like natural high of just being in this beautiful place, being with people I love, doing something I love. And that even spilt over a few days into coming back. I still felt that high, reality eventually started to set in when I'm like, okay, I'm at home, I can't work, I have a broken hand, and it's going to be a while. But it definitely, I felt like my mindset was everything. And also the love and support around me. And I never felt at any point that I was alone in this. And so this has had a lot to do with how I navigated the following days. So
you handled it. So I gotta say, like the whole time, and I know at first you were like, because you were super drunk when I first like came with, or first when we got home, because we were riding when you guys were there, and for the pain, they were just like, we're getting you drunk because we gotta move you past this part. And you were like, I feel like it's okay, but that's also because I'm really drunk. So let's see what happens when I sober up. And then, but there really wasn't even, and I know that you're not a person that necessarily shows it in a really big way outwardly, but you are very honest. Like any of our conversations you and I have ever had, you're very honest of like where you're actually at. And even when you were like, yeah, it's gone a bit scary and about, kind of thing. But even ultimately with that, you were always very grounded in the experience, like in a way that I was just like, well, if I ever break something, knock on wood, I'm definitely going to be like, well, how would Rene respond to react? First of all, she drank a lot of alcohol, which I'm totally down for.
Yeah, that's the first time I ever heard of a rum runner. What a drink.
What an adventure you all had with that.
For those of you who don't know, a rum runner is every single bottle of rum that they have on the bar poured into one glass. And it's surprisingly delicious. Sounds gross.
Took the edge off, that's for sure.
The edge off, yeah.
One of my favorite visual memories, and I haven't even told you this. That evening we went to do like a short or a small little photography session with one of the professional photographers in Belize. And as we were all leaving, everyone took off very quickly because we had a supper that night. We all had to get home and shower and everything. And you were riding behind Emma. So, and Emma was talking to the photographer. So I was the last to hop on my bike and swing around. And you didn't have a bike, right? Because you're riding on the back of it. And you didn't quite know where you should be at that moment because you were just kind of like drunk and hanging about. And as I was turning my bike around, you were just standing by yourself amongst the trees in all your gear. And you look like a little kid and you're just looking around. And I said, okay, see ya. And I waved and you had the most limp, not sad, but also just like, I don't really know where I am, where I'm going or what I should be doing. But you know what? Like, c'est la vie. And you gave this like limp little like wave and smile, like, okie dokie. And I was just like, well, that's magic. Like all of what I was like, everything about this scene was just like, I just made me giggle and brought me so much like just not because obviously we're hurt, but just the happy-go-lucky, like, here we are in life.
Well, I'm glad that that's how it seemed because that's how it felt. Yeah.
My question to kind of like before we go, which first of all, before I even ask this, thank you for coming and talking and co-hosting today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm very grateful to be here.
Loved this. We do this, you and I, often, but we do it walking and talking. So it's kind of like, I don't know. It was super fun to just like look at you through this. And we're usually looking at the side of our heads or not at all. So here we are. All that said, the experience of kind of like real life being disrupted as you know it, and real possibilities on the table at the time, even though thank gosh it hasn't necessarily gone that direction of like, well, what does that mean for my job and the way you had to like change the lens, but then also that aspect of everything that you took away from the experience with Belize. Do you, and if so, how are you going to carry that with you into the next 6 months or however long? Like, what would you like to carry forward with you into now everyday life again?
Oh, what a great question. Wow.
Did you see how you can't see me, people, but I even have, what would you call it? The way my hand is to my chin, a very philosophical pose.
I'd say philosophical. Yeah, very deep.
Very regal, if you will, which is a pure accident. This is, I guess, what, when you really have a deep think, your body follows. But yeah, what's your kind of thoughts on that?
Well, I think I'm still kind of processing all of it, but I would have to say on the top of my head would really have to be, you get to choose how you feel about life, how you approach life. And, being in Belize and feeling so happy and supportive and exactly where I wanted to be was so uplifting. And then having something like breaking my finger to kind of, bring me down. Like there was just so many ways that this could have gone for me. But, the ability to reframe things that maybe happen in life that you don't expect. And I'm hoping that for the next of the year, and hopefully my hand heals well and I'm back to work, but whatever comes out of this, I hope I can really approach life with some control, like acknowledging the control that we all have over our lives and how you see it and how you live it is all that really matters for you. So, I mean, like I said, I feel like there's a lot that I'm still processing about the trip, and I already I miss everybody so much, and waking up in the morning and just having that camaraderie and that adventure and just being up so high on that mountain. It's a wonderful experience. So, and I think what you said is like, how do we bring little pieces of that into our everyday life and just try to hang on to that? And I definitely think that it's possible. It's all just the state of mind, really.
Yeah, I think that's just perfectly put. Perfectly put. Because it's just that of like moments in time, they're not going to last forever. They're not meant to. But you can take the gift and the gratitude and the thing within it, that little meaning, and that you can carry into all and plug that into all the rest that maybe aren't the highest of mountains. Mm-hmm. But plugging those things into them, it changes. It's almost like even if you're in the valleys or you're still looking up at the mountains.
Yeah.
Knowing that, you're on your way to them, or you still can appreciate them, and therefore it just feels like, the valleys feel different than too. And it's all a choice. But, that's why it's kind of, I think, so important to get out there and really live so that you can actually have the contrast take with you. Because if you don't, a lot of times so many people don't even know there's a choice to be had. Yeah. There's so little representation there in their experience. And so what they're actually, taking from is like you and I, we in our group, and we don't live small. We all live big, and so we
got a lot to pull from when you, and it's scary, and there's risk, and there's sacrifice, and a lot goes into it. It's not, but that's, I guess, part of why it is so important to just kind of like get out there and get dirty and try things and be vulnerable and all those things. And then take all the juice from that and you plug it into those kind of tougher, smaller, big, tough, whatever it is kind of thing. So I just love that you said that it's just a choice of the state of mind that you're going in with and carrying that over.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a beautiful takeaway. And just, to be reminded of the contrast of life. And if you don't go out and experience it, sorry, that's my dog in the back.
Stevie, we love you.
If you don't go and experience life, you're not going to feel the highs and the lows in the same way.
If you had to give somebody their motivation maintenance, but if you could give somebody one little thing to like go do, have a think on, even something that's really helped you in the past week with your situation, what's one thing that you would put to them to reflect on or do that could help them if they're in a situation where they feel as though, the kind of like the ground that they were walking on is suddenly shifted below them?
I would say, try to figure out what other options are now open to you now that you're facing a different direction. And it might take time. You might not see it right away. But I think when life changes, a door closes, something opens, another door opens, a window opens. Try to figure out what that is, because there's always going to be something. And that's the key to the next step, possibly.
And that, my friends, is your motivation.
You've just listened to the Motovation Podcast with your host, Krissy Vann, and me, Laurie Joy Kingwell.
Thanks for joining us along the ride. We've got new episodes dropping every Monday, and we're all about community. So follow us on Instagram at Motovation Podcast and visit our website at themotovation.com.
And in the meantime, tanks full and full throttle.